One of them is called like the reversal of desire, which is close to the saying of like embrace the suck or embrace the pain. But you're going into a situation and you're knowing that it's going to be painful, but you're looking at it through the lens of like, okay, I can take this. Like, bring on the pain. And more of like the, not the physical stuff, right? You talk about that like in the gym, like go into the gym and like lift heavy weights and like feel the pain. It's more so the emotional. Like I know that this is going to be very hard and really like push my emotional mental boundaries, but I'm ready for it because I know that if I can get through that and if I can work through that hard thing, I'm only going to level up.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Find Your Fuel. I'm your host, Erin Martin, and I'm excited to introduce our guest for today, Rachel Gregory. She's a board-certified nutrition specialist, a fitness coach, founder of RG Fit, and co-host of the podcast Muscle Science for Women. Rachel has quite a journey in all of the physical, mental, and emotional struggles that we deal with as women, which she shares today, talking all about the habits that has built up her physique and fitness over the years. She also shares how she started to now work on her mental fitness after a breakup from an 11-year relationship. She's a powerhouse of physical and mental fitness and offers amazing tips as your fuel for today.
So basically I got into nutrition in college. I went to college for sports medicine. That was what I got my undergrad degree in. And when I was going through my athletic training, sports medicine degree, I realized that I was super into nutrition, and kind of junior year of college, I thought to myself, oh no, I made a mistake. I should have kind of gone the RD route. And then I switched gears a little bit and realized that I could get my graduate school paid for me if I continued on with athletic training, and was an athletic trainer for James Madison University. And I got my master's degree in nutrition and ex-phys from there while working as an athletic trainer for 2 years. And during that time, I did my master's thesis I did the first study looking at the ketogenic diet in non-elite CrossFit athletes. And this was back in 2016, when keto kind of had one of its, ups. And as that happens in the nutrition and fitness world, I feel like things kind of pop off for a little bit and they have, they go up for a little bit, really popular. Yeah. So that was definitely like one of the big pendulum swings. And I got into it a lot. I just was super interested in everything, that keto had to offer, not just like the fat loss benefits, but a lot of the just health in general and brain health and things like that. So dug deep into that, and ended up kind of going into that wheelhouse when I first got out of grad school. And I started working with people and coaching, and that's kind of where my online business came to fruition. So 2017 is when I officially started coaching online, and that was just kind of the start of everything. And I guess that was 27, oh my gosh, like 9 years ago, which is wild. And yeah, so it's been a wild ride and amazing. And I've learned so much over the past 9 years. And of course, views have changed. I got away from keto, started working with mainly women, went through my own phases of body composition changes throughout that 10-year period, 9 to 10-year period. Around 2018, I hired my first coach to really like dive into body composition changes, because I was doing a lot of CrossFit. I was just kind of the classic run myself into the ground and hope for the best. And if I wasn't feeling exhausted every time I finished a workout, I wasn't working hard enough, right? That was like my mindset. And so hired my own coach, got out of my own way, and finally started to see the body composition that I was working so hard for, and worked for years and years and years to kind of build that up, and, went through different phases of building muscle, losing body fat, et cetera, learning all this stuff along the way, and applying that within my own coaching. And I've actually mentioned this on my podcast, but about, and this will kind of get into where I'm at now, but about a year ago, January of 2025, I started prepping for my wedding. And so I underwent another fat loss phase after kind of spending time building muscle and maintenance, was working with a coach, and I basically got to I call it like my dream body composition, around May, June of last year. And when I say that, I mean, just, after 10 years of actually spending dedicated time fueling my body and paying attention to what it actually takes to change your body composition, spending time building muscle, spending time kind of in those uncomfortable places, and then going through, the different fat loss phases. I call it periodization. That's what I work with all my clients through. And finally, last May, I was like, wow, this is my dream body composition. Like, this is what I've been working for forever. And it was really cool to experience that. However, at the same time, I then experienced the worst event in my life so far that I've experienced from a emotional, just whatever you want to call it. I don't even know what to call it, but the breakup that we kind of talked about, and we can get into that. But I find it kind of just crazy that I finally hit like my physical body composition goal, and then everything else in my life shattered. And so looking back on it now, I'm kind of laughing, but yeah, there's a lot of mental growth that comes out of that, I think.
Yes, which is one reason that I love your podcast, because you talk about both things so much, is that mental plus physical fitness side. And I have so many questions, probably starting with just breaking down the concept of body recomposition. This is something that I admittedly only in the past few years really wrapped my brain around, that as women, we don't just want to lose weight, or we don't want to just be skinny. Like, what we're actually looking for is a physique, or I would say usually what I think women are thinking about is like, I want a banging body. And to get that, it's not just work out more and cut calories and be the tiniest version of yourself you can be. It's the shift to like, no, you actually want to recomposition your body, which means having muscle and losing fat, but you may end up heavier. But then you have a physique that you're actually going for. And that was like a big mental shift for me. Like, I just grew up my whole life, like even into, 40s, like that's what I did. Like, loved working out, and then just like made sure that I didn't eat a ton, where it's really foods needed to get you where you want to go. So I'm curious if you can kind of break down just the body recomp process, like how you then approached it and learned about it. Like, this is a whole different way of thinking, basically, to do it right.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think the biggest piece of the puzzle that most women are missing is that, like you just said, a lot of women are focused on just becoming a smaller version of themselves, right? Feeling like we have to restrict and see the number on the scale go down, and that it has to be this, work as hard as you can, sweat as hard as you can, burn as many calories as you can type of mindset that gets you to the body composition that you want. And it's actually the opposite to a degree. And what I mean by that is, in order to actually look and feel strong and toned is, the word that everybody uses, which I don't really love the word, but people can relate to it. So, just having that shape where you look at someone in the magazine and you're like, wow, they have a nice toned body, right? They have curves, they have some like muscle, right? And what a lot of women specifically are missing is that in order to actually change the shape of your body and not actually just become a smaller version of your current body, you have to spend time fueling yourself appropriately to be able to build muscle. And I think that is just the biggest thing. It's the shift that happened for me specifically, and a lot of my clients, when they finally get this, it just changes everything. Instead of going into your workouts trying to burn as many calories as possible, or trying to sweat as much as possible, or again, trying to see that scale go down, you're shifting your perspective to how can I go into this to build as much muscle as possible, because if I can build muscle, that is what's going to make everything else come into play, and everything else is going to become easier, not only from a body composition change standpoint, but from a health and a longevity standpoint, right? And so shifting the mindset of, okay, instead of trying to work harder and burn more calories and do more and train 5 times a week and restrict, it's like, how can I actually work smarter and focus on fueling myself to build muscle? And so we're shifting that restriction mindset into an abundance mindset. And when you do that, and you're able to kind of look more at the long term, right? You play the long game and you play into that. That is where everything changes, because it's so easy, especially in our society now, to want that short term fix, the quick gratification. It's just, everything's right where, at our fingertips. And so with body composition changes that really last, it's quite the opposite. You have to do kind of the boring, non-sexy things day in and day out to actually see those changes happen. But once you can kind of get on board with that, and you're on it, and you're sticking with that for a few months, and you actually start to see the changes from the boring stuff, you the switch flips, and you're like, okay, yeah, now I get it. And then that's where you can kind of take off and really plan out, okay, if I want to look this way in 2 years from now, how can I reverse engineer that to where I am now? And so that's what I do with all my clients. It's called periodization. We're basically looking at where you want to be and where you could be based off of your current metrics, and then we reverse engineer what you need to do right now in order to get to that spot. And for most people, it's not diving right into a fat loss phase. It's focused on
what did
muscle.
That switch look like for you then? Like, you got your own coach. So then literally, what did you go to from a nutrition and fitness perspective, or working out, to then doing your own body recomp journey?
Yeah. So I started with my own personal coach back in 2020. It was probably when I started my business. I realized okay, I know how to do this. I've been doing this for a long time, but I clearly am missing some things. So I want to have my own mentor and learn from somebody. So I've had several different coaches over the years. And in the beginning, like I said, I was doing a lot of CrossFit. I was going into the gym, either doing CrossFit or doing random workouts and not tracking anything, just trying to, burn as many calories as possible and sweat and feel sore and all the things. And I wasn't paying attention to, as much as I thought I was. I actually was not paying attention to my nutrition to the degree that I should have been or could have been. And so those are the two things that kind of switched. I stopped doing CrossFit, and I joined a gym, and I started following a progressive training program that was more so bodybuilding style, right? So an upper lower split or a full body split, but very strategically, mapped out. And I started actually tracking my food and understanding, okay, what was I actually eating? How much protein was I getting? And that was kind of the beginning. And then everything, as I continued to get more, developed in those areas, then kind of added on layers with peri-workout nutrition, so pre-post, so optimizing that. And then just kind of starting to pay attention to more of the, I call them the one percenters, the things that people tend to start to pay attention to in the beginning when they actually don't have the foundation built. And that's, I think, another mistake that people make. It's again, going back to the non-sexy things. So steps and water and sleep and protein and just overall calorie intake, recovery, stress, all of those foundational pieces. If those are not in play, and they're not, and you're not in a good place with those, trying to layer on or add on little things, those one percenters, I don't know, for example, peri-workout nutrition, that's important. But if you aren't even tracking your food throughout the day, adding that in and not really understanding where that works or how it works is just going to make everything so much more confusing. So yeah, I know I'm rambling, but I think it was just kind of over the years I've worked with several different coaches, and I've learned so many different things from all of them. And I think the biggest thing that I took away, over those years is that, first of all, everybody is different in where they're starting. And so with my coaching, I meet people where they're at and try to not overhaul their entire life and their entire nutrition and training. It's like, okay, where are you at now? And let's slowly like pick this apart and make sure that this is something that you can personally sustain for the long
Yeah.
term. So
Which that's the wild piece to me too. I mean, probably someone like you or I, like we go hard in the paint and like
yeah.
drive hard. So it's like, okay, like give me all the progressive overload. Like let's lift
Mm-hmm.
heavy. Let's like dial macros in. And so I think some of that can be intimidating for people. But one thing I've also realized is I've been in a body recomp program for the past 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So not that long, but basically like got my nutrition dialed in. So I'm eating more than I ever have every day now. And
I love it.
because of some health stuff and an iron deficiency I'm working through, I've actually pared back on working out. So I used to work out an hour every day, 6 days a week, like only
Mm-hmm.
one rest day. Like I had to force myself to do it. And now I'm literally doing like 60% effort with weights to maintain muscle 3 times a
Mm-hmm.
week. So I think I work out an hour and a half, plus lots of walking, good sleep, and water. And I've been
Mm-hmm.
able to maintain muscle, lose 7 pounds of body fat throughout the 3 months just because of the foundations and proper nutrition and approaching it through a body recomp lens. So it's
Mm-hmm.
also like you do not have to completely go hard in the paint to have all these gains. Like just you were saying, you
Yeah.
can do like baby steps to get there, and just
Yeah.
changing that mindset can do wonders.
Yeah. And I think for women specifically, especially a lot of the women that I work with and how I am and was just like type A, go, 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 go. Like we always just feel like we're not doing enough. And most of the clients that I work with, they come in and they are doing too much. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, let's break this down and actually focus on the things that are not going to completely stress out your body every single day, because we are sensitive. We are more sensitive to that stress, especially as our hormones are fluctuating, whether it's in perimenopause, menopause, that area of things, compared to men, right? And so if you are constantly stressing your body out, you're not going to get anywhere. And that also goes to the mindset piece of it too. And I think that is one of the things that, especially over the last year, that I've really recognized in my own kind of training and giving myself the grace to step back in that sense and really take care of like my mental health. And so that is another piece of the puzzle that I've really been able to kind of meet my clients at too when they're going through these big transitions. It's like, no, you actually should not be pushing yourself
Yeah.
this hard right
Yes.
now. You need to like back it up a sec.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of women who will come to me and be like, oh my gosh, like you're so good. You like work out every day. And I'm like, no, actually, that's not good. Like, turns out I was doing it wrong. Like, yes, you can totally sustainably do it, but
yeah.
there's other ways to still be healthy. You don't have to be grinding the gears to get there.
Yeah. And I think it also depends what season you're in too. And so this is a lot to do with like recognizing and having that ability to kind of see where you're at and like what there are seasons where you can and should push more, right? And there's seasons where you need to kind of pull back and really understand that pushing more is actually potentially, digging a hole even deeper for yourself that you need to then come out of. And that is something that I've done many times in the past, and I've finally kind of come to the conclusion after doing that so many times, not doing it is actually what has allowed me to move forward and actually develop not only maintaining my physique from that dream body comp. We can talk about that a little bit, but I haven't like maintained that leanness, that level of leanness, because I got pretty lean. I was prepping for a wedding that didn't happen. But being able to kind of transition out of that and not lose that completely during the most devastating time of my life was, to me, I look back and I know it's because I was able to kind of level up my ability to give myself grace in that period and not get so caught up on some of the little things that I probably would have been caught up on had it been a few years ago when I wasn't as developed in my mental, emotional capacity, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so good. And so, yeah, I am curious about the physique how you got there then. Like, it sounds
Hmm.
like weightlifting, proper nutrition, but what did it exactly look like? What did you do? And what do
Yeah.
you eat as a nutritionist as well?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, getting to that quote unquote dream body composition, that wasn't from that wasn't from January to May of, 2025. Like that 6 month period's not what created that. It was the
10
10 years
years.
before of
Yes.
going through different phases. So during that time, and I think this is kind of the question you asked before, and I didn't really answer it, so I'll try to answer it quickly. But going through different phases of, like focusing on building muscle. So going into a surplus for a period of time, like over a year at some points. And then going, building as much muscle as I could during that time, learning things, getting uncomfortable, right? Because with not necessarily that most people or a lot of people have to put on a lot of weight to build muscle. That's not what I'm saying, especially for even my clientele. They do have a lot of they do see a lot of benefits from body recomposition, which is the ability to lose body fat and build muscle at the same time. But for some people who are more advanced, I would say, and have been lifting for a while and um, just want to be, build as much muscle as possible in a period of time as efficiently as possible, going into like a slight surplus can be very advantageous for that. So I did a few building phases. And then after that, kind of like shedding, the excess fat that was that came on with that, going through a fat loss phase, and then spending a long time in maintenance. And when I say the word maintenance, a lot of people say, "Oh, you were at maintenance not doing anything." That's not what maintenance is. Maintenance, and you can also kind of reframe this as maintenance is a body recomposition phase if you do it correctly, and that is spending time actually solidifying the results that you have just gotten, whether you're coming out, of a fat loss phase, but also spending time actually practicing maintenance and eating enough to fuel yourself appropriately. And over time, if you're doing that and you're training progressively and you're not stressing yourself out too much and you're, tracking all your biofeedback, sleep, stress, all that, you will absolutely build muscle in that maintenance period and change your body composition. And that's what recomposition is. And there's different types of body recomposition, but yeah, so going through those different phases, right? And that was over like a 9-year period. You know, getting lean, getting not lean, building muscle, spending time at maintenance. There's another kind of phase that I call like the health phase. So there was a period of about a year and a half that I came off of one of my video shoots where I got super lean, and I actually got a lot of just hormonal issues and gut stuff that was happening. So I had to kind of pull back and focus on just pure health during that time. And I had a coach that I was working with where I was pulling back from even like I would train like 2 days a week. Right. And
Did you
just
know it
really,
immediately that was the cause? Like being too lean was the cause of things?
it wasn't because I was too lean. I think because during that fat loss phase that I went through, and then the time, towards the end was a really stressful, exciting time, but very stressful time. So the combination of those things, just like everything kind of just like,
Yeah.
my body said, "Hey, we're done." And so
Yeah.
I needed time to recover from that, versus push into something else. So it was more so like a health phase. And this is where, working with someone is important, because sometimes you can't recognize that yourself until someone else points out all the things that are happening. You're like, "Oh yeah, you're right. I should probably chill out for a sec." So yeah, going through all those different phases, right? And then back in January of last year, I was working with a coach, and I just said that my goal was to, um, you know, get in the best shape of my life for my wedding, and um, that's what I did. And it was more so like I went into a calorie deficit, of course. I don't remember how much I lost. It was definitely over like 10 pounds. Got super lean, but I was also very much focused on training at that point. And I was in the gym. I had time to be in the gym for like an hour and a half, really focused on lower body specifically. And also I had started playing flag football at that time. So I was focused on body, like building muscle and maintaining muscle through that fat loss phase, not necessarily building muscle, but maintaining as much as possible. And then also a little bit more focus on like the fun stuff of flag football. So more, powertrain and stuff like that.
Performance.
Performance. Yeah. So yeah. Did that answer the question?
Yes.
I always get lost.
I do want to know exactly what you eat, though. And I also ask
Yes,
because
eat.
I always follow your Instagram and stories, and I've been seeing some roasted squash as
my gosh.
breakfast, which I was like, that
Yes.
is genius. I would have never thought of that.
Yeah, my diet is very boring. I eat the same thing pretty much every day. I obviously try to like rotate different fruits and vegetables and things like that, and I get a pretty good variety with that. But in terms of just, especially, I don't know, like especially since I moved to Chicago back in August, I used to love to, cook and try new recipes and things like that. And I'm sure I'll get back there, but after going kind of through that breakup stage and still in it, there's things that I enjoyed before that I don't really, necessarily, not that I don't enjoy, but I don't have an urge. Right.
Yeah.
So like with cooking and things like that, it's more so I just do the things that I know taste good and fit within my goals and taste good to me, and just put those on repeat. So it's very simple. I always have some type of sweet potato in my fridge, cooked, and squash, typically Japanese sweet potatoes, which are the purple ones with the white flesh.
Oh, yeah.
I'm obsessed with them. Any of my friends who come over to my house, and they're like, I'm like, do you want anything to eat? They're like, is it going to be sweet potatoes and chicken again? And I'm like, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, so sweet potatoes, I just cook a bunch in the beginning of the week, put them in the oven. Super easy. I don't even peel them or anything. Same with squash. So kabocha squash is one of my favorites. But there's a newer squash called koignut. I don't really know how to pronounce it. That has been in rotation for a while, and I just roast that. And then for breakfast, I have that squash, and then I have a yogurt. Like I make a yogurt bowl. I mix yogurt with protein powder, and then I add some berries, and then I kind of vary the different nuts and seeds that I'll put on top. And that's typically breakfast. Super filling.
That sounds delicious too. Like it's really good. Seem boring, but who cares if boring tastes good? Game on.
Yeah. Exactly. And then the rest is just either lunch is, a veggie, protein. Typically I rotate between a white meat and a dark meat. So like chicken, if I have chicken for lunch, I'll have ground beef or some type of steak for dinner, just to make sure that I'm getting the nutrients from the red meat, right? Which I try to include every day or every other day. And then I'll also swap, salmon. So wild caught salmon a few times a week. And then I'll have either some sweet potatoes or more squash or some other type of veggie. And then I typically have a Ninja Creamy, which do you have a Ninja Creamy?
I don't. Tell me more.
Oh, no. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm obsessed. I literally have a whole blog post on my blog that goes through everything and has tons of different recipes and stuff. But basically you're making protein ice cream that you can eat a whole tub of ice cream, a pint, for about 200 to 300 calories if you do it right. And it's so satisfying. And yeah, I basically eat ice cream every single night. And I highly recommend that if you don't have an Ninja Creamy.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah. There are some things that you have to know, like in terms of making it. So that's why I wrote this blog post, because there's different protein powders work in different ways and have different consistencies and different types of milk that you use and all that stuff. But if you find the recipe that works, it's a game changer. So
yeah, not boring at all. I mean, I consider myself boring too, because I just make bowls. Like it's like, okay, let's like throw veggies, protein, and some carbs into a bowl, and like whatever that looks like changes, but it's always just going to be those three in a bowl.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And that tastes delicious.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what I think a lot of people get caught up on too. If you're first coming into, especially people who are trying to eat more whole foods, right? They get so caught up on all these recipes, and it's just paralysis, whatever that term is. And it doesn't have to be hard at all.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to take a lot of time. Like I rely on frozen fruits all the time. Like the berries that I put in my bowl in the morning, those are frozen berries that I microwave. And then frozen veggies, I have those in my freezer at all times. And it's just It does not have to be complicated, especially if you have a few different types of seasonings and you know how to season things, and you have like hot sauces, different types of hot sauces. That's all you need.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll like bulk
Mm-hmm.
cook chicken or steak or something where we can just eat off of it in bowls, like I said, for a few days for lunch and dinner. And that's like it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like have some veggies on hand, like some quinoa or farro, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
that plus some nuts in a bowl is
Yeah.
good to go.
Yep. Got it covered.
And so I do also want to go back to the keto research that you did. So what
Mm-hmm.
is the deal with keto? What did you find? Why did you go off keto? Like, tell us everything.
Yeah. So I haven't talked about this in a long time. So this back in 2015, was when it kind of peaked or started to peak. And I had never heard about it before. I heard of, the Atkins diet and all of that, but I never really like dove into keto. And the thing that intrigued me the most was being able to, actually test if you are in ketosis or not. And that be a marker that could show you, if someone was actually being compliant to what they were doing. And so that really triggered something for me. And then also the brain health benefits like focus and being able to, at least for me, when I was in ketosis, I found that my brain function was just so much higher. Um,
Hmm.
and then in terms of the study that I did, it was really, my professor in grad school for my class, he basically just told us, for your thesis, you want to find a subject that you're interested in and that also has not had a lot of research on it. And so a lot of my other classmates were doing more, what's the word? Surveys, study type things, not an actual clinical trial. And I knew that if I was going to do this for 2 years, I wanted something that would challenge me and that, really uh, could be something like fun and exciting to do every day. And so basically in my CrossFit gym, I went into it and I said, hey, I'm doing this study. And I want to see if anybody's interested in participating. And I got huge, like everybody wanted to participate. And so basically it was a 6-week protocol, and we had 30-ish total participants and divide those up into 2 groups. And one of the groups was going to follow the ketogenic diet, or did follow the ketogenic diet. And the other group just followed their normal diet. And basically what we were looking to see is if the keto group could lose body fat and maintain their performance throughout those 6 weeks within CrossFit compared to the control group. And so I was testing, going to the CrossFit gym a few days a week. Like in the morning, I remember like in the morning, gathering pee samples to bring back to the lab and doing that multiple times a week to test the ketones. Because at that time, there wasn't what we have now, which are like those, blood ketone monitors that are super, accessible now. They weren't back then. So it was testing the pee strips and doing DEXA scans on all these participants and all that. So, and looking at food logs. And basically by the end, we did a retest metric. We retested DEXA scans, and we saw that in the general analysis of the study, the participants in the ketogenic diet group were able to lose a statistically significant amount of body fat compared to those in the control group, while being able to maintain their performance at the end. And looking back, like thinking about it now, I probably would never recommend a ketogenic diet to someone participating in CrossFit, unless it was, and this is something to note too, like I said, non-elite CrossFit athletes. So the people who were participating in the study were these like 40, 50-year-old moms who were a little bit overweight, who were doing CrossFit because it was the community thing to do. It was more so like a boot camp type thing. It wasn't, competitive CrossFit, like they weren't going to the CrossFit games, right?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the population, I think, of CrossFit is just your average Joe who's just trying to get a good workout in, have some community, and looking to lose a little bit of weight or just get healthy. And so that was the population. But even now, looking back and through all that I've learned over the past several years, especially for women, it's probably not a good idea, because especially with such a high glycolytic sport and a lot of stress, carbs are very beneficial to helping not only fuel that, but to also recover from that. And so there are a lot of things that could potentially quote unquote go wrong from a stress perspective if you're actively following a ketogenic diet for a long period of time.
Because keto, is it just fat and protein, like no carbs at all, or minimal?
So it's minimal carbs, and everybody's different too. So the biggest thing is like understanding that, some people who are way more active and, depending on what their lifestyle looks like, could technically still be in ketosis with a higher amount of carbs versus somebody else. So it's all relative to the person. But in the general population, like and I wrote a book on this too, which is, I still think is relevant. Like I wrote a book in 2018. It's called the 21-Day Ketogenic Diet Weight Loss Challenge. I didn't pick that name. I always kind of not regret that that's the name, but it's just like, I don't know. It was for marketing and all that. So anyways, but it's very educational. It's also a recipe book. So if you are looking to just follow more of like a lower carb protocol and not necessarily keto, that is something that can definitely kind of educate you on that. And in terms of the approach that I took and take, if I do see that someone would be like a candidate for following a ketogenic diet, it's more so really focused on like higher protein keto, not the higher fat keto. So you can, and that's a mistake that people make, is like, oh, you have to eat a ton of fat and, reduce your carbs so much. But you can still get into ketosis and benefit from it by just eating higher protein and lower carb, and not necessarily a ton of fat. So it's all dependent on the person, really.
Yeah, to your earlier point, like every body is different. It's like nutrition, fitness, like everything can be so different, which makes it hard then because, you just see someone, you're like, oh, I want to do that then. And it's like, well, it might not be right for your body, which is where coaches can come into play and be helpful, or even just general macro tracking. Like I know it's hard to do, but you don't have to go hard at macro tracking every single day. You could do some gut checks to generally get into the realm and just like understand how to build a better plate. I think that's one thing that's valuable. Just do a gut check. One of your 100%. Days. Where are you at?
Macro tracking is for sure a spectrum. Like I don't think it just depends where you're at, and the biggest piece of it is really just education, right? Understanding, becoming aware is the best thing that, in my opinion, comes out of tracking macros. Is you're just more aware as you move through life, and the more aware you are, the better decisions you're going to be able to make that are in line with your goals. So
yeah. Love it. Well, I definitely want to get to the thing that you've been working on a ton that I've been listening to on the mental fitness side, was just the wedding that didn't happen then. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So, where do I start? The simplest way to put it is I was basically in a relationship since I got into a relationship in college, my senior year of college. And I was in that relationship up until last June. So about 11 years. And the short of it is that I was supposed to get married, and there's a lot of things that happened, over the past few years that were kind of red flags or things that I ignored or that we ignored leading up to the actual wedding. And like we got into like couples therapy for a while and started to work through things. And then there was I call it like the catalyst that kind of opened up everything that happened in about April, May of last year. And don't want to get like too far into that, but basically kind of in a very short period of time, went from sending out the save the dates to canceling everything and, completely just leaving my life in San Diego behind. So that was just a huge transition in a very short period of time. It was the first time that and I've talked about this a little bit on the podcast, the first time like I ever experienced any type of true grief, and just like the biggest kind of life event that I've had. And, I've lost grandparents, I've lost people in my life, but not anybody who I was super, super close to. And so this was, you know, and they say if you've been with someone for so long, like they become a part of you, right? And so
Yeah.
it was basically like losing a part of me in a very short period of time. And so I made the decision that I couldn't stay in San Diego and be able to process and move on. And so basically within like a 2-week period, I sold like all my belongings, sold, mostly gave away to all my friends, that like all of my life for the last however many years that we were in San Diego, which was like 10 years, 8 to 9 years. And then decided to, just move back to New York with my parents, for the summer and just kind of recalibrate there. And so that was a big life change and a lot of mental hurdles that came with that, going through the grief process, the roller coaster that it is, all, the ups and downs, and, you don't understand it until you actually go through it. And so that really kind of, it just like everything kind of exploded in my just internal emotional being. I don't even know how to say
Yeah.
it. And so working through that and trying to process, but also for me, when I something happens, I am the type of person to like dive into, okay, how can I become the most educated on this thing as possible so that I can learn from it and do it the right way, so to speak. So during that time, I basically dove into kind of all of the grief, and breakup and heartbreak and all of the kind of materials that I could get my hands on, and started to learn as much as I could from that. And it was very helpful because there was, pieces of it. The main piece was that always kind of stuck with me throughout that time and up to this time too, is just, trying to not bury down the feelings, right? And feel
Mm.
the feelings and like let them move through you. And that really, is so difficult, right? A lot of us want to, numb things. And, whenever you feel some type of way, whether it's sad or angry, or stressed or whatever, our first instinct is to not feel that, right? Is to do what we can to cover that up, whether it's turning to food or alcohol or some type of substance, or, you know, doing something like going to the gym for 3 hours and pushing yourself as hard as possible to like not feel the thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was something that I really, and I'm still working on, but being able to kind of take a step back and actually ask myself like what I need during the time that I'm feeling something hard or emotional. And one of the things that helped me a lot when I moved to Chicago was I joined a place called Ritual Hot Yoga, and started taking yin classes, which I've never done before. And I always have been a person who's like, I'm gonna, let it all out at the gym, like while I'm lifting weights, right? And I still do that at times, but shifting my kind of understanding of like what actually would nurture me at the time of like what I was feeling, and being
Mm.
able to work with my nervous system versus against it, was doing something restorative. And so finding this yin class, which is basically you go in and you sit in this hot room and you stretch like one body part every 5 minutes, and you're listening to this music, and you basically like are just really just sitting with yourself, and letting things kind of move through you. And I kind of joke now to my friends, I'm like, the amount of tears that I let out in that dark room during those 50-minute sessions was enough to like fill a bajillion swimming pools, really. But it was very healing. So that was something that I found, that helped me just kind of like process. And then, yeah, my kind of life right now is still, I'm processing a lot of things, and things are still changing, and there's different friendship relationship dynamics that I'm kind of really in the deep of right now. And so, yeah, there's been a lot But yeah, I don't even remember what the original question was, but
Well,
hopefully that
yes,
made
just
sense.
sharing more. And I'm curious, did you guys mutually break up then? Do you still talk to him? I mean, like that
Yeah.
messy middle of all of that can
Yeah.
also be hard.
Yeah. So it was so initially I was the one who was broken up with. And that was like a complete shock. There was obviously a series of events that happened, and it was nothing that I thought would come out of what was happening. And so I was in just complete shock in that first few weeks. And then as I kind of came to, I could see very clearly what was happening and began accepting it in those first after that first initial shock. And so leaving San Diego, we worked through the breakup with our therapist, which highly recommend if you ever are going through any type of breakup. I mean, we were basically married and shared
Yeah.
everything for years and
Yeah.
years. So it was like marriage without the actual
In some
title.
states you would literally be common
Yeah,
marriage.
exactly. Yeah. And so going through working with a therapist through the entire process was very, very, very helpful. And I do recommend that to even like I've had some friends going through recent breakups too. And that's like the one thing that I always recommend, because then you always have kind of that sounding board, because there's so many emotions that are happening. And if you don't have someone who's on the outside kind of bringing you back, or at least being that sounding board, it just makes everything so much harder. And so towards the end, we got to a place where literally like the last week before I left San Diego, we spent, the whole week together, did all of our favorite things. We had 2 dogs together, and so my first dog, who's Lilo's, back in San Diego, and I took our newer dog, Mia. She's only a year and a half. So that was obviously a hard thing if you have a pet. Leaving a
Mhm.
pet behind is like another whole piece of grief that you have to deal with. But yeah, so we kind of ended mutually, and even did this. It's so corny, but our therapist recommended kind of closing out that chapter with some type of ritual. And so we ended up, going to the place where we got engaged and like doing this kind of ritual to end and close things, knowing that once I left San Diego, we were going to be going non-contact for the foreseeable future. And so that's what happened. And when that happened, it was a whole other type of grief that
Yeah.
came through that period. And then actually so I left San Diego, like I think it was June 6th. I think that was the date. And then we went non-contact, and then in October of this past year, I was going to San Diego for a football tournament. And that was actually the time where we said that we were going to reach out and see where we were at. And so we did that, and we were supposed to meet up when I was in San Diego during that time in October. And it didn't work out. We ended up kind of getting into an argument through text message when we were supposed to see each other. And so the energy was just not good. And so skipped that. And then back in December, I went to San Diego again for Christmas. And at that point, we had reconnected, and we were kind of texting, and um, very much like away from the actual breakup period, right, which was, June to December. And so we were like ready to meet up, and it was great. And yeah, now we're in contact. We text every so often. We are very much like on the same page of, what happened for a reason, and we just kind of grew apart as we were growing up together. We grew apart, and so yeah, now we're kind of at peace. And I say that December meeting was kind of the official end of that chapter, and now we've started a new chapter to be in each other's lives as friends as best as possible. We have a lot of mutual friends still, so
Yes.
yeah, so I'm in a good place there in terms of that relationship. And there's other things that I'm dealing with from other friendships, things like that right now, that are just also very uh, stressful and new, and life just continues to life, I guess.
Yes. Is that separate, or is that because it was a mutual friend between you two where it got sticky?
Um, you mean like, sorry, this recent, like what I'm going through
Yeah,
right
the,
now?
like, latest
Um, it's,
relationship.
um, it's, it's not completely separate, no, but,
Yeah.
and it's like more of a, I don't know, it's complicated.
So many layers.
There's so many layers, and
Which
I'm still processing it. Yeah. So,
oh, yeah. I'm so impressed that you guys could. I haven't heard of anyone working through a breakup with support or therapy. That sounds so amazing because I think back to like my poor, younger 20-year-old self going through their first heartbreak, and it was like
mhm.
hard cut. Like, never talk to that
Yeah.
person again. That's how you dealt with it. You just moved on and like Godspeed, but you never process. You like just like continue to think whatever. Just like one final conversation or something can help so much with closure. So the fact that you guys
Yeah.
could work through steps is really incredible.
Yeah. And I do I mean, like, the no contact was very, very, like, that was necessary
Yeah.
for however many months it was. I think it was maybe 5 to 6 months of like no contact. Um, it's very hard in the beginning because, again, like, I literally felt like I lost one of my limbs, right?
Yeah.
Your nervous system doesn't, like, it doesn't register that it's not part of your body, that it's actually a separate person, because you've literally become, you know, a unit for so long. Um, but I think it is absolutely necessary, at least in my opinion, to be able to actually, like, completely release that person. And obviously everybody's situation is different, but I don't think that I would never not recommend, if you are going through a serious life transition, breakup, whatever, especially breakup or some type of heartbreak, like, working with a therapist, um, is, like, again, was one of the main things that helped it to be as smooth as it could. And I think there are a lot of people that, tend to, if they're in a longer relation, I mean, I have some friends recently who have gone through this as well, and, in a longer term relationship, and, go into couples therapy and try to work through it, right? There's kind of like a pattern that happens, right? You go into therapy and try to work through it. And sometimes that works, and then sometimes it doesn't. But if it doesn't work, I highly recommend staying with that and through therapy, through your breakup with that, because, like, there's nothing that compares to that, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
That's such a good
So
tip. And so
yeah.
now I'm also curious. I mean, not only did you, I love that you use the word grief because that's literally what it is, that you're working through
Hmm.
all those stages. And what did it feel like going back to San Diego then? Because you bolted and went to hang with the parents for a little bit, decided to head to Chicago. And then I
Yeah.
could imagine then, what was it like going back to San Diego after all of that? It's like almost like these two lives now, very
Yeah.
different, but must be
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, it was. So, and it was also a little bit weird, because the reason I went back to San Diego is because there was a flag football tournament that I had signed up for with my San Diego team before I had left San Diego, like back in April. It was like way before all this happened. Um, and so during that time, the Chicago team that I was playing with in Chicago and practicing with also was going to that San Diego tournament. And so I was basically practicing with the Chicago team for months, and, like, basically on the team, and then going to this tournament and joining this team where I actually only still knew, like, only half of them, and I didn't practice with them. So I was coming into a situation that was already terrifying, just going back there in general, and then into, like, a team that, um, I hadn't been practicing with, and all of a sudden I was just, like, playing with them in this tournament. It all ended up being fine, and they were, like, really welcoming, but that was a whole other, and there was a lot of people, who were, like, in the community that
Yeah.
we were in,
Friends.
and yeah, friends and other people, and so that was kind of a whole other piece of it. But yeah, going back in October was, it was difficult, and it was really, it brought up a whole other layer of grief, right? And I think that's the thing that was hard, and even looking back on that now, it's like, people say this, like, grief comes in waves, and it's so different. Like, and you can think you're through it, and then something happens and you're like, nope, I'm back I'm back on the roller coaster, right? And so that was like another kind of layer there. But then going back in December, the most recent time I went back, my sister lives in Laguna Beach, so like I knew that I would eventually go back.
Yeah.
Laguna Beach is about an hour from San Diego, and going back in December felt a lot more like I felt a lot more at peace, and regulated from there. But yeah, it wasn't easy, and I mean, I love San Diego, and I thought I was going to be there for the rest of my life. You know, I
Yeah.
lived there for about 8 years. I loved it, um, and so kind of having to leave, quote unquote, against my will, I guess you could say. I made the decision, but it was the only decision that I could have made. Honestly, like I could not have stayed there and you know been able to get through that. So yeah, it was sad, but I'm in Chicago now and I'm building a community here, and it feels like the right place to be. So
How'd you
I'm just
pick
trying to
Chicago?
embrace and so when I moved back to my parents' house in New York, I basically just like left San Diego with 2 suitcases and my dog Mia, and moved back. And I didn't really know. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna stay here for a little bit. And of course, they welcomed me and supported me through that. But I had my best friend. I moved to Chicago at the same around the same time that I left San Diego. Um, and that was kind of another big thing that was happening too. Like I literally within a 2-week period lost my fiance and my best friend, one moving away and one, from the breakup. And so that was like a whole other, like just all of that combined was just really, really difficult. But anyways, I came to visit Chicago during the summer. I have some other friends who lived here, some really close friends who lived here too. And I came for a football tournament that I was playing in, and then also just to hang out and stuff. And I went back to New York, and I remember in July, and I was like watching all of their stories on Instagram. They're all like having so much fun. Like all my friends in Chicago are like having so much fun enjoying Chicago summer, and like sitting in my parents' apartment in New York. I'm like, what am I doing here? Like I'm like, I'm not having fun. Like I could be there having fun. So the next week I just bought a one-way ticket and I brought my dog. Didn't have a plan, and I just stayed with my friends and was like, I'm going to test this out. And then I started to meet a lot of people in the football community, the flag football community. And I basically signed up for the fall flag football league before I even like moved here. And I was like, okay, I guess I got to move here now. So that was kind of the next step. And I lucked out and found a really great apartment that was furnished. And yeah, that's just kind of how it went.
Diving in and carving out the new adventure then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I know that you
it's been good.
I love that you take the approach of like, I want to learn everything that I can. And like, you recognize what a big thing this is to work through and process and handle it in a healthy way. Because I think so many people do just like, okay, I'm going to stuff this down, like end up using, a substance or anything as a crutch to push it down. So I know you've learned a lot. What are some of those things that you implement now that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I do want to just say too, like, I'm not perfect. I absolutely, during those times, used, whether it was like numbing things at some points with food, right? Or like I'm not perfect. I, have urges and cravings and want to numb things. And so there were periods of time, especially in the fall, like when I first came here, that, I would have like a binge at night or something, or eat something that, beyond what I should have. And that happened multiple times, right? But the awareness of understanding that that wasn't something that could be sustainable to be able to like work through this, or I'm not a person who drinks a lot, but like just going out and drinking more with my friends and the social aspect of that, but also realizing that I was probably using it as a numbing tactic. And so again, I just want to like preface that I'm definitely not perfect, still, not suffered, but still went through a lot of those things and still am. But I think the more you build awareness around it and you can recognize when you're getting into those patterns maybe, I think that's really where like you start to grow and to improve. But some of the things that I have been doing and, you know, just continue to try to level up on are, really just focusing on like a lot of those self-care and self-help things that people talk about, like meditation and, um, you know, like I said, the yoga piece, the yin yoga has been really healing for me, and that I even look at that as a form of meditation, and it's something that I'm like, I pay a monthly membership for it, and so I like utilize that and something that keeps me accountable, right? To showing up there. And even there's days where I'm like, I don't want to go to this, and I've already signed up for it. It's just like that accountability piece, and then I come out of it, I'm like, wow, I'm so glad that I went.
Yeah.
Um, and journaling, right? Therapy, of course. Working through just different types of self-help books that are intriguing to me. And um, I'm trying now, like in the beginning, I had like 10 different books that I was reading at once and trying to like just, soak up all the information. And then at the beginning of this year, I committed to taking a step back and actually like only reading one or two books at a time and really trying to like implement the things that I was reading versus just taking all the information and not actually, putting it into practice. So that's something that I've kind of been a little bit more cognizant of, is like actually, reading these things and practicing them, but not letting myself kind of go on to the next thing until I've actually
Absorbed it.
absorbed and implemented what I've learned. And so that's been really great and obviously a work in progress, but
What's
I
one of your
feel,
favorite books you've read?
yeah, so I've been reading, I'm on my second pass through, Tools. It's by, have you heard of the movie Stutz on Netflix? It's
Mm-mm.
it's a documentary about Jonah Hill's therapist and the life of his
Oh,
therapist.
yes. Yeah.
And so that documentary, I remember I watched that. It was a few months ago, and it really, a lot of the things in that just like really hit me. And he speaks about the different tools that he uses with his patients to help them work through their, mental, emotional issues or whatever you want to call it. And so I was really intrigued by that and realized that there was a book that was a play off of, not a play off of, but lined up with a documentary, but it's very different than a documentary, which I thought it was just going to be kind of like a recap of it. But the tools in the actual book are different than the ones that he goes through in the documentary. Some of them line up, but it's a lot more in depth. And so that's the book that I've been working through. And it's basically just giving you different tools to help you level up in your own mental capacity. And for example, one of them is called like the reversal of desire, which is where you embrace. It's basically the close to the saying of like embrace the suck or embrace the pain, but you're going into a situation and you're knowing that it's going to be painful, but you're looking at it through the lens of like, okay, I can take this. Like, bring on the pain. And more of like the, not the physical stuff, right? You talk about that like in the gym, like go into the gym and like lift heavy weights and like feel the pain. It's more so the emotional, like I know that this is going to be very hard and really like push my emotional mental boundaries, but I'm ready for it because I know that if I can get through that and if I can work through that hard thing, I'm only going to level up. And I've seen that so many times, especially in this last 6 months of my life. Like, and people talk about this all the time, like when they go through a hard breakup or when they go through, a big change in their life or like go through into a next chapter, um, looking back on it, a lot of people say like, thank God that happened because I learned so much and like I wouldn't be where I
Yeah.
am today if that
In
didn't happen.
hindsight.
Yeah. And so I think that going through the difficult things and like embracing the hardships is only gonna make you level up more. And so being able to kind of flip the switch and say, okay, I know that this is part of like my growth and my expansion. And if I can look at it through a different lens and actually embrace the pain, so to speak, and embrace like the difficulties that are going to come, or like the feelings that I'm going to feel, and still be able to feel them, right? Not numb them, but still be able to feel them and like work through that. You just continue to like get to a different frequency, and you continue to level up. And um yeah, I never really like understood that until I actually started to do it, and it's pretty crazy
Yeah. I
what it
think that
does.
mental shift too can grow your empathy for others. Like if you think
Mhm.
about what am I going through right now that's hard, and you think about all the potentially millions of people who are also going through it and how you are
Mhm.
actually growing, and your level of empathy for an understanding of someone else in this world has grown because you've gone through it now. There's those type
Mhm.
of things where it's like, okay, this is good. Like we're humans
Yeah.
having experiences, and there's more people out there going through what you are as well.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. And that's something that I'm working through now too, and this is like another a whole other thing that I'm working through is like actually understanding like empathy and being an empathetic person, and actually sometimes being too empathetic. And so that's something that I'm actually another area of my life that I'm trying to recognize and come to realizations of different um relationships that I've been in and things recently, is just like, am I actually being too empathetic right now? And that's just like a whole other area that I've been exploring. Um and it's wild.
Which
So,
is good to recognize. I think there's a lot of women who do that. Every day they'll just, there's a relationship, someone's having a hard time here. So you listen, you feel it then. Or there's a
mhm.
struggle over here then at work, and listen and feel it, support. We naturally want to go and support. And then all of a sudden we're just so drained, and it's the end of the
Mhm.
day. And then we're drained by family some more. And you just don't have the energy for yourself, for like the key relationships you want, because there's just been these pockets of take everywhere else.
Mhm.
So stepping back and
100%.
seeing that.
Yeah, it's like the classic saying, you have to put your mask on before your neighbor's mask, or else, you know, that's it, right?
Yeah.
And that's a huge piece of my coaching too, and the women that I work with. It's like, if you're not filling your cup first and you're trying to go fill someone else's, like, you're running on empty, and it's just going to run you into the ground. And you have to be able to be a little selfish sometimes. And I think that once you can kind of find that balance of recognizing what you need to feel your best and show up your best to your family, friends, work, whatever it may be, once you can find that, that is like, it changes everything, because you're now not running on a battery that is completely drained. Like, you've recharged your battery, and now you can show up even better to those other parts of your life. And I think that that's something that took me a long time to recognize. And I think that I'm still working through that, but it's definitely a big thing. Like, you need to recharge and like give yourself time to do that.
Yeah. That's one of those things where conceptually it makes a lot of sense and sounds simple, but then to actually do it every single day.
Yeah, it takes work. All of this takes work, and yeah, I think having support and accountability with that is huge. And it's like, nobody should be trying to do this alone, because there's time, and that's another thing too. Like, there's necessity to spend time alone, and I think that's something else that I could speak to a little bit, is just going from literally never living alone ever as an adult,
Yeah. From
to
senior year
then,
in college.
yeah. And so, like, even in college, like, I had a roommate, right? So I had never um actually lived alone as an adult until a few months ago. Because I went to my parents for a little bit, and then in August of 2025 is when I like moved into my own apartment. And so that was like a whole other piece of it. It's like, oh no, what do I do now? And so learning to be alone and like to enjoy your own company, while obviously processing and going through what I was going through, was, push and pull, very difficult things. And, I found myself sometimes isolating to try to become okay with being alone and like, you know, practice that. And sometimes I would just isolate too much and then realize like, oh no, I need to actually like get out of my apartment. And so it's finding that balance. But there is also a piece of just like sitting with yourself and working through things alone that you have to do in order to continue to level up. And I think that's something that I've been recognizing a lot more lately is like um finding the peace and the ability to like enjoy being with myself alone, and it not actually feeling lonely, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that's like a balance as well, like leaning on your people, but also understanding like you are like you have you for the rest of your life, right? Like you're going to be going through these different things, and if you don't spend the time like becoming your own best friend is the easiest way I can say it, like you're going to continue to just feel lost and be looking for that outside thing that's going to fill your cup. And this is something that I was actually relates to something I was listening to last night. Do you listen to Jay Shetty at
Yes, I
all?
have. Not consistently, but he's good.
Yeah. I started listening to him a few months ago. And he talks a lot about like different relationship and self-help stuff and all of that. But he had an episode about like manifesting love, and a big part of it was talking about how like when people go out like dating and looking for relationships, or like the people they're attracted to, it's actually, you know, more so reflects where you're personally at from like a nervous system perspective, or like if you're
Mm.
feeling chaotic and drained and you don't know like what you want, you're going to attract that, right? And so that's why like people
You
who
just
go through
project.
they go through different relationships, and they're always like finding themselves in the same patterns, right? And they're always ending up with someone that, you know, is not right for them or not good for them, and but they don't recognize that until months later, right? Obviously everybody's their own individual, but it's just recognizing that if you're looking for uh, that outside kind of um, I don't know, like something from the outside to fill your cup, you're coming from like a place of lack, and you're not actually going to you're not actually going to find something that's really going to show up in the way that you want to for the long term. So you have to,
That's good.
it's the classic like work on yourself and figure yourself out before you try to go, you know, be with somebody else, because it's just
Yeah.
going to probably turn out not great in the end. So,
Yeah. That's such good advice.
mhm.
And I know we're at time, but there's so many things I could probably talk to you forever. Is there anything
Yeah.
else that we didn't touch on that you wish we would have?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I feel like I don't know, there's so many different things. I love to talk, clearly.
That's why you're
I
a good
don't think
podcast
so.
host. You'll have to just come on later. We can do a second
Yeah, we
episode
can
later
do,
on with
yeah,
you
for
down the
sure.
line.
Yeah, I think, I mean, right now, just in my life, there's so many things that are like in transition, and then I feel like I'm continuing to like recognize things a lot faster uh with where I'm at, and I think it's because I'm just been open to like open to them, right? And open to like I said, open to the pain, open to the change, and like just embracing all of the things, whether it's good, bad, disappointment, something I'm unsure of, the uncertainty, and just like trying to fully um what's the word? There was a word that I was using, and I'm losing it. But basically just like letting it happen, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what's the word?
Yeah, I kind of get the vibe of
Surrender is the
surrender.
word. Like just
Yes.
surrendering to what is happening and taking it in and feeling the feelings, letting them pass through, trying to learn from all of the different things, and yeah, just surrendering and continuing to try to be as aware as possible, cuz yeah,
Yeah, and there's a
that's it.
calm that comes with that type of living, I can imagine, even if, you're not dealing with something crazy where you can
Mhm.
just observe and be and not try to force, then I just think of daily life like that. Like if I pull off some pressure and not try to force the day and
Mm-hmm.
all the things into it. But you can observe and be calm. Like, it's just a very different lifestyle and approach that feels way
Yeah.
better and mentally stable.
Yeah, 100%. And I think with entrepreneurs and people who run their own businesses, like that's one of the things that's so hard because, and this is something I found myself in the last few weeks when I basically hired my own business coach to help kind of push things forward because I was at a very much a standstill. And I needed that next thing, like something that could challenge me again and like kind of light a fire under my ass to like keep building my business. And so I invested like a good chunk of money in a business coach, mentorship. And then all of a sudden I went from like not doing kind of just the things that I was like originally doing and kind of like the bare minimum for a little while. And then all these things, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I want to learn all these things and do all these things, and found myself like starting to work like really, really late at night and
Yeah,
then kind of
grind
draining
mode.
myself, grind mode. And I came like a few weeks, even last week, I just like kind of sat back and I was like, this is not going to be sustainable. I need to take a step back and get back into like a flow that makes sense and realize that, it's the exciting things are not, and the fulfilling things are not the end goal really. And this comes back to body composition and all that. It's like actually the saying and enjoying the process, like really fully kind of diving into that and like really just enjoying all of the different pieces of it. And I think that once you can get into that headspace where you are actually enjoying the process and not trying to like push yourself so much that it becomes fun again. And yes, there's things that are stressful and things that are going to come up and deadlines that you need to hit and things like that. But once you kind of like flip that switch in your brain and you always kind of come back to like, okay, I'm doing this and it's long term and I need to be able to sustain it. And I think this goes for business and body composition, right? If I'm not enjoying what I'm doing and learning from it and still pushing myself, then it's just I'm just going to burn out, and
Yeah.
that's not good for anything. So,
Yeah. And I love that because if you also think about, like, how do you work every day on the life that you want to live? So there is the destination of stuff you're striving towards. You always want to grow and be better, but
mhm.
how do you want to live it every single day? And like most people are like, yes, I don't want to live in chaos every single day. Some people
Yeah.
I actually have heard say yes. Like, I love that. I want to be in the chaos. I want to do it. But for most people, I think
Yeah.
they don't want to live in
Yeah.
chaos. And so how every single day do you check yourself and you're like, did I live today the way that I want
Mhm.
to live every single day? Because all of a sudden we're going to be 10 years down the road and you're going to look back and
Yeah.
be like, oh, did I just hate the past 10 years even though I have this? Or
Mhm.
did I love every single day because I worked on it that much?
Yeah. I agree. And I think one thing that I implement and highly recommend is the 5-minute journal. Have you ever used
Ooh,
that?
yes.
Yeah, I think that's such an easy way to like check yourself because it's very simple in the morning. I do that every morning. You do the 3 things you're grateful for. You do a daily affirmation, and then at the end of the day, you kind of reflect on the day. It's like 3 things that happened that were great, and then it's just that short reflection period at the beginning and the end that allows you to kind of bring things back into perspective. Like, okay, was today actually what I wanted it to be when I sat down this morning with a clear head? And then you can
Yes.
continue to refine and become more aware each day.
I literally have that one and I also use it. And what I love about it is also the planning, or maybe it's the get shit done one, but it's very
Get
similar.
shit
The
done.
gratitude affirmation, but then you
Mhm.
literally write what can you get done today that would make it a win? So just
Yeah.
writing down the like 2 to 3 priorities, don't get crazy. Like today,
Yeah.
what can you do? Then it has you work through like, okay, I can't do 70 million things that are in my mind and on my to-do list. Like this is what
Yeah.
today's going to be successful. You schedule it in so you know where it goes and then you can check them off because there's actually
Mhm.
space and time and clarity for it. And then boom, you like close that out. You can do the same tomorrow. There's just like something so refreshing to your point of writing things down, getting out of your head, journaling,
Mhm.
just like putting that down and being able to turn that page and just box
Yeah.
in what's actually doable in one day is awesome.
Yeah. 100%. Um, there was one more thing that I've really been focusing on lately that I just want to voice because I think this is something
Yes.
that finally like kind of understanding this and recognizing this. It's called like the kind of identity shift practice or exercise. And in simplest terms, it's, thinking to who you want to be in, like who you want to show up as in people say like 5 years from now. For me, like 5 years is just a little bit too much. So I'm like, okay, in 2 years from now, like who is that person? Like what are they doing when they wake up in the morning? How do they feel, right? How are they showing up? What are their non-negotiables every single day for their health and mental well-being? And literally waking up every day and becoming like practicing what that person does and
I
already
love that.
doing it versus saying like I will become this person. No, I am this person. What does that person do every single day? How do they feel? How do they move through their day? And so if you can think about, okay, who do I want to be in 2 years? Like what does that person do every single day? And then you start and you write that down and you reflect on that, and then you actually start to like put yourself in that, right? It's not like I'm going to do this. It's I am doing this right now because I am this person in 2 years. And so when you can shift your identity to that, and this is what like a lot of the work that I work with my clients through, like the identity shifts, because I think that that's like the main thing, right? If you're continuing to live as the person that you are right now or were, and you're practicing these habits, like your body's going to stay there, right? Your nervous system only knows what's safe and wants to stay in the safe. Like they want to stay where it wants to stay where
Yeah.
like what's going on, like you recognize that, um and it happens subconsciously, right? And so if you can consciously practice being in like being that person that you want to be in 2 years and shift that identity now, like that is what actually moves things along,
That's so
Does that make
good. So what
sense?
did you write down?
Oh, there's tons of things. I mean, it's just thinking, first of all, also recognizing the person that you were years ago versus the person you are now. And so
Mm,
even just simple things like, I like now I'm a person who I get 10,000 steps minimum a day. And like, there's nothing that I don't like, I get it done. And even if I'm like, don't even realize I'm doing it, like, I know, like, subconsciously, I've programmed myself to know how to get 10,000 steps a day minimum, whether it's spending a little bit of time on my walking pad or like taking my dog on a walk or whatever. Like,
you've got that habit down.
yeah, I've built that into my being. But maybe five years ago, I was actively still trying to do that. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, what are those things? Like, what is the person in 2 years when you wake up in the morning? What do you do? Like, who is that person? Do they? What are your non-negotiables? Right? Is it getting 10,000 steps a day? Is it, I'm a person who goes to the gym minimum 3 times a week and lifts weights because I know that it helps me to continue to work towards my most confident body and self and feel strong and feel, you know, again, confident in my whole being, right? What are those non-negotiables? And then you bring that back to now and you like actively start doing those things, and you then transition into that identity, right? Slowly or fast, depends how aware you are. And yeah, so it's just like even small things like that. Um, or like I am someone who wakes up every morning and journals for 10 minutes. I write down like my feelings. I am like myself 2 years from now does not look at my phone first thing in the morning. It's, I give myself at least an hour to do other things. And that's like something that was not me 6 months ago. Right. And
Yeah.
so that's like recognizing those patterns and like, and then you start to see the benefits that come from that, right? You start to see, oh, how do I feel, this past month when I haven't looked at my phone the first thing every morning and I've actually spent time on myself and doing the things that bring me peace and
Yeah.
bring me more into that person who is in alignment with who I want to, how I want to feel, right? And so, yeah, those types of things.
Yeah, I love that. One thing that brings up for me is very similar is I want to be a good sister, a good daughter, a good friend. And give back, like be someone who's supportive
Mm-hmm.
and just, gives back to people and helps people. And so I think that I have rooted down, just like you were saying, into like, I want to be that person. And maybe I'm not perfect every day. But then when I am in situations, I can clearly see like, oh, this is like a friend who needs extra support. Like it is very clear then to me, like what action do you want to take right now? And there's 80 million things going on in my life, but like, what is the priority? And making that a priority, or sending a note, or, whatever is needed in that specific moment. It becomes so clear when you have those type of things kind of figured out ahead of time.
Yeah, 100%. Having like the clarity that you build from just like, in my opinion, just like simple journaling or doing brain dumps, or just giving yourself that space to think and spend time there. Like nothing else. You can't benefit from anything else better than like doing that, in my opinion, from a mental health standpoint.
Yeah, you're the greatest project you'll ever work on.
Yes, 100%.
Oh, Rachel, well, thank you so much for coming on. Again, I absolutely love your podcast. So if any women want to check that out, it is the best, talking all things physical and mental fitness. I'll put everything in the show notes. And thank you so much again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Find Your Fuel. If you enjoyed the show and want to support us, please leave a comment or review. And before we go, I have to give you the obligatory medical and legal disclaimer. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. The advice and recommendations we discuss are not intended as medical advice and do not replace the treatment or care of a physician or any other primary healthcare provider. Using the information shared today does not create a doctor-patient relationship, and it should not be used to diagnose or treat any health problem. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making changes to your diet, exercise routine, or medications. The use of any information provided is solely at your own risk. So in a nutshell, let's be smart and remember these stories and conversations are for educational purposes only to help other women find the fuel to live their best lives. We'll see you in the next episode.